The Shedeur Sanders drama has been all over the media, has been all over the internet, and it's it's been an interesting one. Dre, do you want to just give a little context as to what's been going on?
Yeah. So just for clarity for the viewers, none of us are the biggest or really into college football like that, but this has been, I guess, groundbreaking in terms of a draft slide in the NFL. So this has been kind of hard to miss. But to give you the very basic breakdown, if you don't know somehow, Shedeur Sanders is the son of primetime Deion Sanders, all-time legendary NFL player, the greatest cornerback or just defensive back in general in NFL history, and went on to two-sport athlete, like just crazy, legendary athlete. And he's now a coach in college football, and he's coached his son. He also coached the number 2 draft pick, Travis Hunter, who was always a crazy talent. But he's also coaching his sons in college at Colorado. And is one of his sons, the quarterback, Shedeur Sanders, basically was projected, even by Mel Kiper Jr., who was the guy who always does the mock drafts every year for the NFL, as like the number 1 quarterback out of this class. Most people realistically had him second, third, maybe, but no further down than that. But in reality, he ended up being, I believe, the 6th quarterback drafted out of this class. So instead of going in the first or second round like you would have maybe expected, he ended up going in the 5th round and was the 144th pick of the draft, which no one saw coming. Every day it was massive news that he hasn't been drafted yet. And it was probably, at least in the modern era, the most public draft slide that I've ever seen, in terms of everyone covering it. And it's very interesting now to see where it goes, because he was ended up being drafted to the Cleveland Browns, who actually drafted a quarterback in this draft ahead of him, I think in round 3, and then they doubled back and drafted Shedeur as well. And that organization is just a mess in general. Like they have a crazy QB curse in that organization, but it's going to be very fascinating to see where it goes from here, because now they're going to have basically a quarterback duel in that organization to figure out who's going to be the starter. And you know, as bad as it may seem now, if Shedeur ends up having any kind of successful career, the lore from this draft slide is going to be immaculate. Like that's the one thing you can't take away from him. If he turns this around, he wins that starting spot, and he does anything for the Browns or just does anything in the league at all, you already know in like 10 years they're gonna come back and edit up some documentary of him in this draft slide. They're gonna have the edits of him sliding and the clips of him looking sad on stream, and you know it's gonna go hard. So you know, he has a crazy opportunity here to get some motivation and turn his career around. I say turn his career around. His career hasn't even started, but he was just looking for the opportunity and he got it. But I was curious what you guys think about this, because really it's very rare you see something like this. Usually when someone's projected high, they go high. And for someone to slide like this, it had to be because of some extracurricular reasons. And in terms of Shedeur, a lot of the speculation is that the draft interviews that he had with these teams did not go well, and a lot of these owners seem to think that he's entitled or maybe uncoachable. None of these things have been verified, but these are the rumors and the reports that are coming out. So this is less about his actual ability and more about what he could mean for the franchise from a coaching standpoint, from a media storm standpoint, and also from a standpoint of his father, who they're potentially afraid can try to make a play to be a part of their franchise when they don't want him to be. So there's a lot of intersecting narratives around this, but most of all, what's important is that he did end up getting drafted. Funnily enough, not by the Raiders, who has Tom Brady in their organization, and that's supposed to be his guy, and Tom Brady didn't even draft him, which is kind of funny. But Tom Brady is also his guy, and Tom Brady was a late draft pick as well. So, you know, you could have a Tom Brady lore building here. But either of you have any thoughts on this, or, you know, have you seen anything like this before in other sports? Maybe something in baseball. I don't know how to follow baseball, but what do you guys think?
I haven't seen something like this before, and I'm kind of surprised Like, if it is true, I guess, that behind the scenes or during these interviews, he's a little uncoachable or entitled. I feel like there are a lot of players in sports who you see with that attitude, and yet they somehow still play and somehow, keep making it on the team despite maybe not performing as well as their ego would suggest. So it is a bit surprising to see one person affected by that, but then again, that could also maybe not be the case. I would just call the overall situation just weird but entertaining. So I'll take it.
Yeah, I think. Sorry. I think one thing that's been wild is people have been saying that the franchises that he interviewed for were not impressed by his interviews. So I'm a little bit interested in seeing just like if details on that ever come out. Like, I just really want to know what they would categorize as a bad interview. We were speaking before this, and I was saying that like Shedeur seems someone who seems confident. I wouldn't necessarily label him as cocky, but like Dre said, I'm not super familiar on, I'm not too tapped into college football as much. So I'm just a little bit weirded out as to like what the reports have been saying. There's been a lot of people in the media coming out and defending him. Stephen A. Donald Trump even came out and was like out here criticizing the owner. So, or I guess the front offices. So I really want to know if we'll get more details on this sometime soon. But it has been wild, and yeah, the Tom Brady comparisons have been interesting. It's gonna be tough because if I'm not mistaken, I believe he's the fourth string quarterback on the Browns. Is that not true?
Yeah, I think if it comes down, I think based on the fact that he was drafted second in this draft out of the two quarterbacks, he'll end up being fourth string. I think whether or not you could say it's probably a toss up for third between him and the guy who went ahead of him. I forget his name. I think it was Dylan Gabriel was the quarterback drafted to the Browns ahead of him. So I think you could say either of them are technically third string, but the fact that he went after him, you have to say he's probably fourth string. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's weird, and I don't think I really don't think we've ever seen anything like this in professional sports. Period. For some reason, I keep getting brought back to like Allen Iverson, and he had like legal trouble going into his NBA draft. He was picked number 1 overall, and he proved that he was a good pick. Like that wasn't a mistake of a pick, or people obviously look back on AI has like this like legendary NBA Hall of Fame talent. So I don't know. There's definitely in the past been like speculation on the person's like attitude. I also get brought back to like Lonzo Ball in the draft because people were like, how much of this is on-court talent versus just like hype from his father. Obviously LeVar wasn't in the NBA, but like he still did have a big presence prior to Lonzo's, I guess, draft night. So I don't know if we can draw like an exact comparison to seeing somebody slide down. I was scrolling on social media and someone was saying like Shedeur Sanders was getting the Spencer James treatment. So anyone who watches All American had me dying, man. But there hasn't really been an actual like in real life example of anything like this. So I just think it was interesting.
Yeah, first of all American, terrible show, but I think
Agreed.
it's interesting that good to hear. But I think it's interesting too. I guess it's not a real comparison, but maybe even the reverse is if you look at last year's NBA draft, Bronny James went higher in his draft than Shedeur Sanders went in his draft, which is kind of crazy if you really look at the circumstances of both situations in terms of, I guess people would maybe try to compare them as like both nepotism type situations, but Shedeur actually had the on-field production that justified him being at least top 2 round draft pick. but he actually ended up falling super far. And Bronny, relative to his college career, there's circumstances behind that, but relative to the reality of his college career and the numbers, he went maybe higher than you would have expected. So it's interesting to see that Bronny ended up actually being a higher draft pick than Shedeur, which I never would have expected. But them's the breaks. Dion, you're a legend, but it seems like you're not LeBron. So I guess it's also different because Dion's a coach in college that I guess the owners don't want to see come to the NFL versus like LeBron's still playing, and the value of getting Bronny is potentially getting LeBron on your actual team in real time. So it's like a different pull for these teams.
LeBron's a player, front office administrator, coach, assistant coach, trainer.
Great father, great husband. Great, the Stephen A. ticker tape.
Please put the graphic. But yeah,
there was actually a period of time he ran that graphic like every week for like a few months when Max was still there.
Yeah, no, good times. What I did also want to get into, actually, wait, one last thing I did want to say before we get into the second part of this discussion. I also did hear that, again, I am not completely sure on this. I do not have an opinion on this, but reports were saying that this quarterback class is one of the weakest in recent memory, or like people are not as high on these quarterbacks for this NFL draft, and so that could have played a role in his backslide. I don't think it is like the main reason, but I also think it's something to be conscious of, the fact that obviously people think he should have gone in the first round, but to think that it was only 5 quarterbacks ahead of him, I think also speaks to maybe the lack of depth, or like the lack of just like talent that the owners or front offices see within this draft class. So I'm also curious about that. Don't think that it came down to that, but also I think something worth mentioning.
Yeah, that's fair. And I think too, because people are viewing it as like, okay, Shedeur is now people are viewing him as a 5th round like value, and the reality of any draft is that even if, say, like you're the 3rd best quarterback in your draft class, but only so many teams are actually interested in drafting a quarterback. So even if it's like in the first round, say a quarterback goes 1st overall and a quarterback goes 15th overall and a team needs that. If no team needs a quarterback for 2 rounds after that, then it doesn't matter if you're the next best quarterback or not. You're gonna slide, and then the slide's gonna look worse than maybe the reality is of where your positioning is. I think the issue with his is that he did end up going 6th in terms of quarterbacks, and that's way lower than people thought in terms of the actual quarterback value. But in terms of like the fact that he went 5th round, that's just the reality of the quarterback need in the NFL, because there's a lot of high level quarterbacks in the league right now. Honestly, I guess people will say like the 2000s, late 2000s, early 2010s had a lot of great quarterbacks, and I agree. But a lot of teams, I could probably name 10 off the top of my head that have really good quarterbacks right now, and that's not even including like their up and coming ones. So, there's only so much demand at the end of the day. I know you wanted to get into the prank call.
100%. Yeah. It's trending all over social media, but it looks like there were these 2 guys who prank called Sanders and kind of pretended to be the members of the front office of, what team was it? Was it the
I think it was the Saints, I think.
It might have been the Saints. Point is, they called him on apparently a phone number that he has not given out to anybody. So I'm very curious to see how they even got the phone number to begin with. But I believe it was on Friday. Sanders got drafted on Saturday. So this was, I believe, on Friday, where the first round was on Thursday. So he was already anxious, I'm sure. He was already disappointed, probably exhausted. And the clip that's been going around is a clip of one is the people who were doing the prank call, calling out to him and or giving him calling him on the phone, pretending to draft him and telling him, like we're gonna draft you, whatever. And you could see that he's very excited. He's also on stream on his end, and he says like, "Let's be legendary," And they go, "Well, yeah. Maybe you have to wait a little longer." And then they kind of click the phone, and then they kind of just ditch the phone call entirely. And on Sanders' stream, you could see him. I think he was talking to his cameraman. He was like, "What does that mean?" And like you could see him realize that he was pranked in real time. And I don't, I'm not gonna say I condone this behavior, but it was hilarious, man. And I feel bad for him, but the internet is such an evil place, but the internet is also undefeated. So have you guys seen this clip as well?
Yeah.
Word.
Solid.
Oh,
I thought you were going to talk about it.
Oh no, I thought I could talk about it. Yeah, we'll cut this part out. Yeah, I saw the clip. It is very confusing how what looks like a bunch of frat bros just randomly get this dude's number. I did see rumors that like one of the kids' dads is like works in the NFL or for some team and might have found the number from them, something like that. I don't know. That's just a rumor. But I mean, you hate to see it, honestly. Like it's kind of funny, but it's also kind of sad, given how it's obviously a very big deal. Whether he gets a position on a team or something like that. And I think all the drama already going on and being on stream and the pressure of keeping up that appearance, I mean, it's just a lot. So you got to feel bad for the guy. And I will say, like, if he goes on to be like a great player, this will be a great origin story.
For sure. And I just looked into it and I found like, what you're saying. Yeah, it does seem to check out, Alexi. Apparently, it was the son of an Atlanta Falcons defensive coordinator. He put in the prank call and pretended to be the New Orleans Saints. I guess he was hoping it wouldn't trace back to the Falcons, but I think he ended up admitting it anyway. So I guess there was no hiding it. But yeah, it seems like it was the son of a coordinator on the Falcons pretending to be the Saints, drafting Shedeur, which is crazy. Crazy. It's funny too because Saints and Falcons are in the same division, like division rivals. So that whole situation is kind of funny. But yeah, this prank call. As much as I want to sit here and be like, don't do this, and you shouldn't do this, and then like, oh, this is terrible and all whatever. But I ain't gonna lie. When I first saw the clip, I first saw it from Shedeur's angle or perspective. Like I was dying. I ain't gonna lie. Like the whole like you have to wait a little longer. It was killing me. And then like you said, the reaction after where everyone like because they were on stream. I think his brother was streaming, and every time they thought it was a chance for him, he would like pop up on stream, and like this whole family's there. So every time he gets a call, people are like gathering around, like getting excited, hoping that that's like the moment. So he gets the call and literally everyone's surrounding him like, oh my God, he's about to get drafted. And the guy's telling him, he's like, yeah, it's going to be legendary, man. Like it's just the confusion afterward is just crazy. But in reality, it is unfortunate because obviously, he got drafted now, but at the time when like your entire life up to that point, all the work you put in and like what you're hoping is your future is on the line, a moment that must be like the craziest gut punch ever. Fortunately, he ended up getting drafted anyway, and even if he didn't, I'm sure he would have gotten signed as a undrafted free agent eventually anyway. Like his brother ended up getting signed as well. But yeah, in that moment, that must have been the worst feeling ever. But hey, funny's funny, man. Game's game.
Yeah, and I believe because he was on stream, that the video from Sanders' perspective was the one that we all saw first. It was funny too because I remember when that came out, because there was a little bit of like a buffer before the recording came out of like the two guys making the prank call. I remember seeing people in the comments like when they like under like the clips of Sanders' stream, they were like, nah, they definitely heard him say let's be legendary, and then they rescinded the offer right then and there and then clicked the phone. So man, it's just funny, and I don't know. I hate to kick a man when he's down, but man, that was comedy. And I'm sure in hindsight, you know, he'll be all right. I'm sure he'll accept the fact that that was hilarious. You know, it is just crazy though, because, you know, like I said, the internet is undefeated.